So thank you. Yes, I'm based, as Susanne Tanner, I'm based at the University of Lisbon, and I will take you more into freshwater this time, and to the Tagus estuary, the river that meets the sea in Lisbon. So the work I will be presenting here today is actually the PhD of Rita. She's here as well, and I am part of the supervisory team accompanying this work. And just before I get into the results, I will give you a little bit of background on migration. So migration is a very heterogeneous phenomenon. So there are a lot of variations in the migratory patterns we see both within a population and among populations. So, and this variation is actually really widespread. Initially, it was thought that it was if an animal would move, the whole population would move. But research has shown that this variations is actually the rule rather than the exception. And we often call or term these differences in migratory behavior as partial migration. So when we find like a lot of plasticity in migratory behavior, we term this partial migration, as you can see on this upper graph, where you have varying proportions within a population that either migrate or stay resident. And in fish, partial migration is really widespread. So there are many different species that show this partial migration, as is shown in this lower schematic, showing that all fish reproduce in the same place, and then you have one part of the population that migrates or disperses, and one that stays resident the whole time. Now, what drives these different patterns of migrations? Overall, migration is driven by fish looking for food, to reproduce, for mates, to seek refuge from predators, and to avoid unfavorable environmental conditions. But when we try to understand partial migrations, things get more complicated. So it often involves trade-offs between multiple factors. So one of these trade-offs is that when a fish moves, it might find better food resources and better environmental conditions to grow faster. But in this new place, there might be more predators. So there is a big trade-off to that. There is also another mechanism that is believed to be involved is competition among the individuals in one place that makes some of the fish move to others. And also changes in feeding behavior. So what they're feeding on can lead to part of the population moving, and also body size and physiological tolerance can dictate somehow what portion of the population will move or will stay resident. And there are believed to be two main mechanisms that make partial migration that partial migration is maintained over evolutionary periods. So one is that either fraction of the population have the same fitness, or that it is like predetermined that only males move or only certain age fish will move. So just a little bit, so these are like cousins of our bass, and so the family of the temperate basses, and it's only to show you that within this family, so partial migration is very common. So we have two examples of fish species native to North America for which it has been shown that they do have these different migratory contingents, one reproducing in fresh water and estuarine water, and then moving between along the whole gradient, the salinity gradient, and one which reproduces only in fresh water, but then uses a lot of the estuarine areas. And similarly, the seabass, the European seabass, could actually do this based on studies on salinity tolerance that show that it is a truly euryalline species, so very tolerant to salinity changes. And it has been shown and mentioned several times already this morning that juveniles are caught in freshwater and do use freshwater environments during their growth. And also, Tom just showed us some results from his studies on fish moving, and I was counting on Mathieu presenting before me, so I didn't have to talk about that part. But it's basically also showing that you have in French waters, you have fish moving at very different scales. And however, for adult fish, it hadn't been shown until very recently that there is actually fish moving into freshwater, big sea bass moving into freshwater. And this is the study we published very recently in the Tagus estuary. So you can see here the Tagus estuary, and we captured a sea bass in 150 kilometers away from the river mouth, so very upstream. The tidal limit, you can see it there with the wobbly lines. It's about 80 kilometers upstream, and this is another 70 further up. It is also where there is the first obstacle in the river, so there's a weir place there. And just a little bit on how we got the results of this study. So this was in collaboration with anglers who angle right below this obstacle. And these anglers would captured all the sea bass that was used in this study, and also participated in a questionnaire to gather more information regarding the freshwater habitat use of this species. So, and how did we contact the anglers? We used some Facebook groups to get in contact with them to see if they have been catching fish there, and also with a database on the licenses for fishing that are issued by the Portuguese authorities. So here's some results. So what we found in terms of lengths. So here we considered a very conservative measure of what's being an adult. As we have heard, the minimum size for capture for adult fish is 36 centimeters. Here we applied rather higher lengths, but what you can see is basically that's mainly subadults or adults that are captured in this area. And in terms of age, it goes from few age 1 and then up to age 6. In terms of when we catch these fish, so in the more downstream areas around the tidal limit, the most catches are in March to August, whereas in the upper limit, it's June to October, so later in the year. So this study basically shows us how important it is to maintain longitudinal connectivity also for marine species, not only for diadromous species. And based on the questionnaires, we also, or the questionnaire provided evidence that the fish or sea bass has been doing this for decades. So fishermen remember that 50 years back, they would catch sea bass up there. And so, but one thing is that there is a fish passage in this obstacle, but they don't use it. So they don't go beyond the weir. And another important thing to mention is that there has been a shift in the angler behavior, because they're not targeting barbels and anymore. They've shifted to targeting pike perch, I think. Yeah. Sander, yeah. And so they use different baits or lures, and so they also catch more sea bass due to that. So we have been trying to figure out if this happens in other places. And so far, we know it's happening also. So seabass goes into fresh water in other rivers in Portugal, in Spain, and in France. This picture up there is from Spain, from a river in southern Spain. So quite a big seabass. And what we're going to do next? So during her PhD, Rita will also look at otolith chemical profiles to, as Anna has said earlier, so to look for a signature where we see seabass going into fresh water and try to understand how they use this habitat, if they stay for a long time or just go up and back down again. We've also looked at otolith shape to see if there's any differences, still very preliminary results, so I will not go into that. We are also tagging fish, so with acoustic tags, as Tom just explained. We only tagged 2 fish last year, but we detected them. So 1 week after tagging, 1 individual was recorded down in the estuary, and the other fish spent 2 months somewhere upstream the estuary during the winter months. And we also hope to do some genomics and transcriptomics to look into what is needed if these fish that move into fresh water have actually adapted to the fresh water or not. And so if you have seen freshwater sea bass, please let us know. We have a Google form for you to answer a few questions if you have seen it. That would be really helpful. And thank you very much to all the funders and everybody who has contributed to this work. And yeah, thank you.